Hi, my name's David Alberts, co-founder of Been There, Done That, and welcome to the first in a series of films we're going to make called Been There, Done That, WhereNext. One thing that we've been hearing a lot in our conversations with our clients is that the fact is that what's got us here is not necessarily going to get us where we want to go to. So we're going to start a series of conversations with people who are experts in the field, people who have themselves been there, done that. And I'm very happy to welcome Ted Rubin, author of best-selling book, Return on Relationship, as the first person that we're going to speak to. Ted, welcome.
Well, David, thank you so much for having me here. I'm kind of excited to have this conversation. It's been great getting to know you and the team at Been There, Done That.
Great. So the structure of this is very much going to be just a couple of questions and hear what you've got to share with the people out there. So the first question I want to ask is, Ted, what do you see as the biggest challenge that we're facing now as an industry?
Well, look, we all have a lot of challenges every day. And one of the biggest things about that is how quickly technology and the entire marketing environment and even product environment is changing. And the model we have today, in my opinion, does not embrace community, at least not in the way I'd like to see it embraced. The value of community goes well beyond our customers and advocacy. And it's not even being properly valued there, in my opinion. But more importantly, we need to create a feeling of community internally with regard to our solutions, because a network gives you reach and a community gives you power. I also like to say networks connect, communities care, and companies, I believe, just need to start stepping beyond just creating a good culture and start nurturing employee community. Because when you have a community, you have a group of people that you can always go to. We tend to value our networks. For years growing up and all throughout my career, I thought of myself as a networker. Everywhere I went, I met people, I met new people, I kept relationships. But what I really discovered later on, and it was pointed out to me by people who I brought in to these places, was that I'm a community builder. And that's what's really given me the value beyond just a network. Sure, a network gives you people you can reach out to here and there, but unless they have a feeling of you being a strong relationship with them, unless they feel that you're connected to other people that they're connected to, they might not feel that it's as important to give you the value that you need. And so what I've been trying to do myself personally, and especially for companies, is open up their eyes to the value of community and bring it within your organization. Because when you have a group of people that work together that feel like they're part of a family, they feel that it's someplace they want to go, that when they work at home, which is great, everybody working remote, but that when they come together, they get extra value. I think that explodes the value of the thinking of all of us.
I think that's a really interesting thing. And look, I remember when I was first a creative director, someone said to me, "You're actually a director of creatives and a director of people." And one of the things I always found was like that the people that came up in the elevator every day, I saw the same people every day. And one of the things that you're talking about in creating those networks and those communities that I like is that sometimes you want to go and speak to other people. And is that the type of value that you're talking about with the value of the community and building a wider network?
Absolutely. First of all, I like to say that relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become. And what better way to engage them than in a community aspect? Because then you're not just going one-to-one, which is great. And of course, one-to-one relationship is important. But when you're part of a community, people see that happening. They participate vicariously. They see you and I engaging on a regular basis. And when they feel a part of that community, they feel like they're having the conversation with you too. And to me, that just expands on the whole concept and adds so much more value to it and lets it grow exponentially. And then, do you remember when Google tried to get into the social marketing space and they built, I forgot exactly what they called it, but they had circles and the circles kind of went over each other? Well, the beauty of that, their concept was dead on, because we're not just part of one community. We tend to be a part of multiple communities. And then there's a place for those communities all to come together where there's the overlapping portion. And that overlapping portion, by the way, can shift. So I'm sure you've heard also the thought process that you can really only know 150 people well, right? You read about that all these people that are connected to thousands and thousands of people can't possibly get the value from it on a community basis. But I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think our communities and our focus shifts. So it might be 150 at a time, but that 150 is going to change over time, over circumstance, over the particular project you're working on, when you reach out to a different part of the community and then possibly bring two of them together where they can even add more value.
I think that's great. It's a really good point. It's almost like a Venn diagram that you're just going to keep moving that circle according to the sweet spot that you want to hit.
Exactly. It's a Venn diagram that is not static.
Yeah, interesting, really interesting. And tell me, so in your mind, in a been there, done that, where's next kind of process, where can you imagine in the future that we could get to as a kind of way of working?
Well, first of all, I think that one of the biggest problems we all experience is finding valuable employees, and then more importantly, keeping those employees. And I think when you create community, that creates a place where people want to be. There's a reason that companies started serving meals within the organization. Believe me, it wasn't just as a bonus so that people would get something extra. They don't have to go out and buy their lunch. It's more about keeping people around so those conversations happen much more organically than setting up a meeting and possibly a brainstorming session that doesn't work because there are no brainstorming and one person is leading it and the others just are telling them what they want to hear. So I think where we could take this next is that we can start building a culture of community. So culture is really important and it is the first step, but then you need to take it one step beyond and making people really feel like part of a team. And I don't just mean team exercise type of things where you take people out and get them to work together. And yes, those are great. And creating whether it's a night out for drinks. I mean, it's more challenging now, right? Because so much of our workforce works remotely. Some companies are strictly remote. So whether it's getting people together for a Zoom or spending the time and the investment of bringing people together so they get to know each other and having a regular time, or it's that once a week when people come into the office, I think all of that is really valuable, and we need to start paying attention to it and figuring out. I don't think I have the solution for you right here, right now. I think it's something that we have to pay attention to and figure out, and I think we need to do that rather quickly.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Yeah, it's kind of, and you think about what a place of employment was. Yeah, forget about the food and the table tennis and everything like that. But what it was an opportunity for people to talk in a safe space. And right. I think you're right. Community is about respect for each other and respect for different types of opinions. And maybe that's one of the cultural things that we have to open up, is that we're there to give different people a voice in that conversation.
I think the most important thing is start letting part of being a community is letting people know that you value their opinions. And in too many companies, opinions are not valued. It comes from the top down. Everybody knows what they're supposed to deliver. They don't come up with unique ideas because either they're afraid they're going to be laughed at, they're afraid the boss isn't going to be happy, that maybe he'll show them up, or it won't be the exact topic they were looking for. And I think we've got to figure out this new environment. I think remote also has great aspects where I can have a conversation just with David. I know nobody else is overhearing me. I know that nobody from the cubicle next to me is going to report what I'm saying. And maybe I feel that I'm in a safe space where I can really share some good thinking and then strategize how to bring it to the group. But then again, we lose that face-to-face. So I think a lot of thinking has to be done about how to bring that together and how to create that community. And I think it's going to be different for every company. I think there's going to be some basic guidelines, and then the work is going to have to be done to figure it out. How do we do this for us?
Yeah, really interesting. It's so funny. We kind of, when we were recruiting our CSO or CCO, or even now our CMO community, people often would say, as a natural, what does the client want? And the answer is always, they want your opinion. And I think one of the things of bringing different people in is the fact that they value you're being asked to join because you have an opinion that is focused around a problem rather than a relationship. And one of them said to me, I love, one of the strategists said to me, I love this. I don't have to meet a creative director or a client. I just meet the problem and the people I'm working with. And I think, again, it's a really good point about bringing that around the table.
But I think that's very been there, done that focused, because in most, at least from what I see, in most agency situations, and I know you guys don't consider yourselves an agency, but people just, they hand over what they're expected. Their opinions, they don't really think their opinions are valued. They don't come to the table saying, I know these people want to hear my opinions. They might want to see a result, but they don't necessarily want to hear the ideas and the brainstorming that go into it. So, I'd like to say that where I see this going is, I think the first step is companies need to embrace this idea of community. They need to see the value, and they need to wrap their arms around it and say, this is something we want to create here. And then, without being too self-serving, because your community either knows or will know that I'm working with you guys, that I think they need to bring in been there, done that, to bring in the community that you've created with some of the greatest minds in the world and the people that really have been there, done that, to figure out how to do this for each individual company, because this is not cookie cutter. And like so many other things, if we try to make it cookie cutter, here's the 5 things you need to do to create employee community and to leverage the value of the people that are working for you, then it's going to fail.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One of the principles and the starting principles we had was we decoupled thinking from execution, right, so that we could provide thinking without agenda. And I think that gives everyone in the community and everyone internally, and even the clients around the table, the idea that actually there's no external agenda here. We just want to focus on that. And that is a base ground rule for a community, is that there's no agenda. There's just a desire to solve a problem, I think is key. So tell me, you've written books about it and you speak about it a lot and everything. So if I'm watching this film, what would you say is the first step that a client could do just to set up the environment that is, the organism that's going to receive this kind of way of working?
Well, I think the first thing is to make your company, your employees, know that this is something you're thinking about. Because right there, you're going to engage them. You're going to engage their thinking. You're going to engage their hearts and their minds. Because now they're going to say, okay, wow, here's a company that's actually thinking about this. Second thing I do is I'd want them to be a part of the process. I'd love to hear from them. I'd love to hear what their ideas are. What do they think can happen to make them feel more valued, which I think is important. And I think we also need to make it clear that we're not talking about compensation. We're not talking about, any of the things related to that. We're talking about how you feel as a person within this family. And again, think about what words do we use? Is family the right word? Maybe it's not. Maybe people think that's too close to home. Maybe we need to stick with the word community, or stick with team, or, there's lots of other ways to go about it when we think of those things. In sports, you don't call it your family, you call it your team. So there's other ways to look at it. And like I said just earlier, I think you need to bring in some outside thinking that can feel very comfortable giving you ideas without the thought that it's not going to be what you want to hear.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. And it's, the people, we always say, people say, what type of clients do you work with? And we kind of define them as, we're not very good at working with know-it-alls, but we love working with learn-it-alls. And I think creating that learn-it-all culture of curiosity, if you're curious and open, then you welcome different points of view in, whether we're working with an in-house agency or with a client. The idea that you are open to different ways of thinking from a community of people just creates a positive environment.
Absolutely. Create a reputation of caring. I like to say that a brand is what a business or a person does. A reputation is what they remember and share.
Very good. Very good. Well, listen, on that note, what I would love to say is thank you very much for sharing with us and sharing your community. And as people know, that we've brought you into our community because you're an expert in the space and you've got great experience in the space. And, the reason you can write a book like Return on Relationship is because you've been there, done that. So Ted, it's a pleasure chatting with you, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon. I know we're going to see you in Cannes, and for anyone who is coming to Cannes, come and see us and meet with us and become part of our Cannes community over a glass of rosé.